Welcome to The Merge, where faith and mental health meet. Hosted by LynnDee Horn, a licensed counselor and owner of Narrow Gate Counseling Services. The Merge provides a biblical approach to mental health and navigating life's challenges. Join us as we explore practical, Christ-centered solutions for mental wellness, relationships, and spiritual growth.
Welcome to The Merge, where faith and mental health meet. I'm your host, LynnDee Horn. Today, we're going to be talking about faith, mental health, and calling in our career choices. So my guests today are Candace Leon, who is no stranger to the show, and Cameron Leggett. So Cameron is currently a graduate student at Liberty University. He's about to wrap it up. He will this summer. And he's also an intern with Narrow Gate Counseling. So his main job, though, is actually working at Falcon Children's Home and Falcon Christian Academy. Candace and Cameron, welcome to The Merge.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So, Cameron, I just gave a little quick blurb there of what you do. Would you expound on that at all, or you have other titles that I did not mention?
So I've kind of done it all at Falcon. So I led the summer camp for the past 7 years. So it's pretty much like a big youth camp for the kids that live there on campus at Falcon Children's Home. So I was over that for the past 6 or 7 years.
Gotcha.
And then before that, I actually worked with the social worker case manager role, and then kind of now just stepping into the counselor and teacher role. So.
Great. So, yeah, you've moved around a lot, have a lot of experience with all of those roles, I'm sure.
Yes, ma'am.
So what we're going to talk about with career today, I wanted to talk about this because it really, as a Christian, we're tackling this topic because our calling, our purpose, our career, the path that God has us on as Christians really does matter. And it's connected to our well-being. It's connected to our overall mental health. It's connected to our faith journey. It's really connected in many ways to a lot of what we spend a significant amount of time on in our lives, whatever that job looks like, right? So whether it's you're a student right now and your job is to be is to just be a student, or whether you're at home and you're a mom, or whether you are in a full-time career and own your own business, or whatever it looks like. We spend a lot of time in our jobs or our careers. And so I wanted to be able to talk about that today. I want to give a couple of statistics here just about job satisfaction in America to give us a little bit of a framework to talk from today. And maybe some of you will say, oh, okay, well, I'm in that majority, or whatever that looks like too. So I went to two different places. The first one is the Pew Research Center, and they did a survey in 2023. And what they found out was pretty interesting. They broke it down by age. So 2/3 of workers, so about 66% of workers ages 65 and older, said that they were extremely or very satisfied with their job. So 66%. Compared with 55% of those between 50 and 64, and then it goes even lower, 51% of those 30 to 49 said that they had extreme or high satisfaction with their job overall. And then 44% of those 18 to 29 said that they had extreme, or that they were extremely or very satisfied with their job overall. And I bring this up because, honestly, that's pretty low. To spend a significant amount of our time doing the work at this point, whatever roles we find ourselves in, to have that level of job satisfaction, that means for those, overall listeners, 18 to 29 today, that almost 60% are not satisfied with the job that they're in currently. Wow. So, and even at the highest place, if we've got the 2/3 at 66%, well, there's still, 34% that are saying that they're not really satisfied with their job, or maybe they're minimally satisfied with their job. So I say that in one way, maybe to give comfort for those who are in jobs where you're like, yes, it pays the bills. Maybe that's where you are. Well, almost 50% of America is in the exact same place, give or take,
Right.
if we were going to average that. And so I think that's also why it's important to figure out maybe why God has me here. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about kind of the different attitudes and different journeys that we're on, what we can do to quote unquote bloom where we're planted, where God has us in the roles now, even if we're in that percentage of, we're not satisfied with our job and where it is at this point. There's another, also in 2023, it's called Work in America. It was published by the American Psychological Association. And it's actually a pretty good, if anybody's really interested in some things and looking more about satisfaction in work and just overall, just different aspects of it, it's a great one to look up. But the one that I pulled out, the statistic, it says the percentage of workers who typically feel tense or stressed during the workday. And so overall, that was about 48%. So almost 50% of us in our jobs every day feel tense or stressed during the workday. But the interesting thing about this also is they looked at meaningful work, right? As Christians, we realize that it's bigger than what we're just doing in the moment, right? Like we want what we do to have some type of meaning or to be a light, maybe in the place that we are. So those who have meaningful work, about 45%, so it decreased a little bit, about 45% say they typically feel tense or stressed during the workday. So half don't, but that's for meaningful. For those who did not have meaningful work, they did not feel like their work was meaningful, 71% felt tense or stressed during the day at work. So being able to have meaning, values, maybe expressing our faith in some way in the workplace, again, wherever you would find that at. Maybe that's your living room. Maybe that's you work from home. Wherever you would find yourself, wherever your work is. If we can have that meaning and we understand the purpose behind those things, then it is going to impact our stress levels. It's going to impact our mental health and our well-being because we're going to feel like we're part of something or there's an assignment for us to complete. Those types of things. So all of this really it can go hand in hand, for sure. Also, I worked in a university counseling center for 11 years and talked about this a lot with a lot of my clients, that 18 to 29 year old age group. And so I just have a heart for a lot of these conversations for those that are younger, really getting into the workforce and thinking about careers and majors and all that stuff. But even now in my 40s and knowing how my career has changed in different ways, like this is a great topic no matter where we find ourselves in this area of our career or our work. So my hope is that Candace, Cameron, and me can share a little bit of our journeys today with our listeners about our careers and answer some questions on the topic, and that our listeners maybe can find some encouragement or direction or clarity or maybe even a new perspective from our conversation today. So that's just setting the stage a little bit. So let's get into it. Candace, I know that you were a teacher in high school. I know that you got a bachelor's in psychology. Like, tell us a little bit about, like, your journey. How did you decide you were going to become a teacher? How did you just tell us just a little bit?
Well, I did major in psychology, and I went to University of North Carolina at Wilmington. And when I graduated, there's several different routes you can take with a bachelor's degree in psychology. You can either go further on for education, or there is teaching that you can do, and there's other type of careers that you can have. And I just didn't know where God wanted me. But in Cumberland County, where they were looking for a specific group of people that they could continue their education, and so I went ahead and went with the beginning teachers program with North Carolina. And I really am thankful that I did that. I ended up teaching for 4 years, and it was a really good experience in my life, being with that age group, and it was really meaningful. But when we started, our family, when I had my first child, my husband also, it was time for us to move. And so it was a struggle, because I was like, I have this career. I have my degree. And my son was very young. And I was like, God, am I supposed to go back to work? am I supposed to stay home with him right now? We're kind of transitioning. It was at the end of a school year. I didn't know really what God was showing me or telling me. And then I remember that summer we were moving, and I had been with my son the whole time. And I was just like, this is what God wants me to be. This is where he wants me to be. We were in a different town, a new town. And I was just like, this feels right. And this was very different for me because I had worked since I was 16 years old. So it was a very different, perspective. It was just very new to me, everything about it. So it was an adjustment, but it was where God wanted me to be.
Yeah. So you said you felt like it was right. If we were trying to describe that, was it just like a peace, or you kept praying about it and you just like, sometimes there's this place where you just know, or like, what was that for those who maybe there's some moms trying to figure out what type of transition they want to make with their children or at home? Like how did you really take that leap? Again, you moved, so that helped a little bit because your old job wasn't there because you were in a different state.
Yes.
Is that when you were in Alaska? Is that when?
No, it was Florida that time.
It was Florida. Okay.
Yeah, the second one.
So
was
many
Alaska.
places. Gotcha.
But no, I really did pray about it. And the other thing is I kept looking for positions, and I just kept. It was the amount of time. It was the pay and the effort, and there's a whole thing with childcare and going to work, and it was just one of those things where I was just like, I'm not sure that this is worth it for me to leave at this time. And when I kept looking and I kept finding these jobs, I just felt it in my heart, like that just was not what I was supposed to be doing. So after prayer and after talking, of course, with my husband, we just decided, that all right, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah. And also what I'm hearing is that was kind of confirmed with your spouse too, right?
Oh yeah.
So
for sure.
When we're in family units and we're making these kinds of decisions, I think God can speak to us through peace and our prayer. God can speak to us through maybe friendships or wise counsel. He can speak to us through our spouse. Like if your spouse in a lot of ways is just not feeling comfortable with something or is having a hard time, maybe they need more time, or God needs to work on their heart. But in some ways, if they're for it and they can confirm that, then that's great.
Yes, absolutely, for sure.
It just helps you even kind of further know that this was God's plan. Now, so even though you were a stay-at-home mom, again, because I know you pretty well, I also know that you've had some outside of, now you're the office admin for Narrow Gate and help us run all of that. So but you've had a few different times where you've worked from home as well. So you've still been able to, because like you said, you worked since you were 16. That's really kind of all you'd known. You enjoyed that. I mean, I worked with you for a little while. That's how we met the first time. Mm-hmm. And so I know that you were good at what you did. Like you flourished in a work community. Thank you. But you also had some opportunities even from home. So it wasn't like that, that was just a season that you completely left.
So that's, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because there was this part of me that, like I said, I had always known just to, be in the workplace. And during that transition, there was a part of me sometimes that missed it. Like I wanted to contribute. I wanted to be a part of that because I enjoyed it. I enjoy, I know this might sound crazy to some people, but I really enjoy admin work. But anyway, I was able to find, and I feel like God provided those opportunities throughout my stay-at-home mom journey, where I was able to work part-time. Sometimes it was with even schooling or preschool with my kids, and other times it was, just doing admin at home. And I really enjoyed those moments, and they came in, I think, at the right times in my life. And so there are opportunities out there for that to be an option as well.
And it worked with your schedule, and it just made sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, Candace, I know that you kind of grew up in church, but I also know a lot about your background. Were you, like, from a young age, did you know there was going to be this job that, God maybe had for you to do, and you prayed about that? Or did you just kind of go with the flow? Like when you were younger, what was your perspective about like jobs and careers and all of that kind of stuff?
I was very goal oriented when I was younger. So I was always like, okay, there was no doubt that I was going to graduate, go to college, all these things. But as I was going to be a dentist, as far as I was concerned.
Oh, okay. Oh,
but then a couple.
I don't know if I knew that.
A couple biology courses and some chemistry courses. And I really realized very quickly, this was not my path. but I didn't really have a clear. I don't think that I had a very clear vision, I would say, or, path that God wanted me to be on. And I wish that if I could tell my younger self, I wish I would have told my younger self maybe to pray specifically about that path that God had for me in my career.
Yeah.
Because I think it's super important. And I think that, of course, God has a hand in all of it. But I wish I would have maybe prayed, but I found my way, and he has, he makes everything for our good, and he had me covered. So I'm very thankful for that too.
Yeah, I love being in a place now where I've been in a career long enough to look back and see how he has put all the puzzle pieces together. And I'm sure in 20 years, I'll even have a longer view of that. But it's pretty neat to see how he ordered my steps, right?
Yes,
like as
absolutely.
believers, how even when we didn't know it, or maybe we weren't praying it the way that we needed to, or it wasn't in focus like it should have been, maybe, that he ordered our steps and was working things together for good, even when we weren't sure about it, or even when we weren't making it a priority. I think that's can be very powerful and encouraging for people, for sure. So, okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else of what you highlighted that I would say. Did you ever have to, I think you probably did coming home, but what about have you ever had to take like a leap of faith in your career in any time, so to speak, where you're just like, all right, Lord, I just really got to trust you and jump into this?
Well, honestly, becoming a stay-at-home mom was like a huge leap of faith, because there's a lot that goes into that. But I would say that when I was thinking about going back to work, that took a huge, leap of faith. And, and sometimes God's timing is everything. But I think I've just learned over the years to make sure that I am asking for his, guidance, and, to be in that space with him, and that with his will. And and that's just
his timing's not our timing.
Yep. Yes. Thank you. His timing.
Yeah. I remember one time, and Cameron, I promise I'll get to you. We know that you're on the phone here with us today.
Oh, no, I can.
But I remember one time, and I think that's interesting. That's about God's timing, because I think God can give us, especially if we're praying about it, or we're really wrestling with it, or talking about it with our family, or just somebody else. We can be in these places where we'll get these inklings of, or just kind of this knowing of, I'm going to make a transition, or there's going to be this move, or maybe I should do this. But just because we might know that may be years down the road, or it might be a few months down the road. I remember when I felt really called to go back I left college counseling for a year and was doing something. I was working with a nonprofit, and I really strongly felt like I was supposed to go back. And I remember talking to my husband about it, and I was like, hey, I feel like I'm being kind of nudged or pulled to go back into college counseling. I believe that's where I'm supposed to be. And I'm probably going to need to go get my doctorate, just so I can kind of do the roles that I wanted to do when I came back in. And so I was looking at doctorate programs thinking like it's going to be a while and maybe there'll be a job opening. 2 months later, I get a call. Mm-hmm. Hey, would you be interested in coming back to work here at the university? I mean, and that was out of, so what at that point, a lot of times we want it to happen quicker. And then we think it takes longer. But for that one, I thought I was going to be like 2 years down the road, maybe that was going to be an option. And literally 2 months later, God dropped it in my lap. So we don't ever know God's timing. We just need to trust it. And if it takes longer, there's a reason. If it drops in your lap, go for it, because that's the Lord. That's not going to happen unless that was the Lord.
It's funny you said that. I actually wrote that down, having patience, because I know for me, I like to rush and like get it done right now. But it's kind of like having patience and trusting God with it all. So.
Yeah, that can be in anything. That's what's fruit of the Spirit, right? We need it. So, all right. Well, we're at a place where we're going to go to a break really quick. And then when we come back, Cameron, I want to hear about your journey and even as a grad student. So you are listening to The Merge, where faith and mental health meet. We will be right back.
Narrow Gate Counseling, providing professional counseling where you are. At home, at work, or on the go. Our virtual counseling services are convenient, affordable, and accessible on any device. For a free consultation, call 888-9-NARROW. That's 888-962-7769. Connect and learn more now at narrowgatecounseling.com.
Welcome to The Merge, where faith and mental health meet. I'm your host, LynnDee Horn, and today I am with Candace Leon and Cameron Leggett, and we are talking about faith, mental health, and our calling and our careers and our career choices, and even the journeys that we have been on, just a variety of paths, and how God has used our faith and the skills and abilities that He's given us, and maybe the desires of our heart, and how we all have these different journeys in where God is leading. So, Cameron, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, so I actually grew up around Clinton, North Carolina. And then we eventually moved closer towards Dunn. But I actually went to school at Southwestern University in Oklahoma, so I got kind of far away. But they offered me a scholarship out there for soccer, and I had family that lives close by in Oklahoma. So I was like, why not just take the gamble and go halfway across the country at 17. So,
yeah.
So I was out there for 3 years, and I eventually came back and finished my degree at Heritage Bible College. So I have a bachelor's in religious education and then a BS in Christian counseling.
Okay.
And then actually an athletic certification from Southwestern University. So to say all that is kind of a journey from where I got to till now. So because I thought I was going to stay in Oklahoma, live out there. I actually had some job opportunities out there that I could have taken, but I just kind of I have two younger brothers, so I kind of missed them growing up, and the family was all here, so I kind of come back this way and be with them. So
you wanted to come home.
My grandpa was not doing very well then, so
gotcha.
He had cancer, so I was coming back for that too as well.
So you got away, which, hey, when people grow up in whatever they consider small town America, a lot of times your goal is to get out, right? Now, I'm not saying you felt that way, but I know that I might have felt that way, and then God in his humor and sovereignty was like, you're not leaving. You're getting your bachelor's and your master's in your hometown. So, haha. But anyways, yeah. So I was like, I want out. So I don't know if you felt that way or not, but you did, right? So you did 100%,
leave. Yeah, I was you want to get away from me.
Yeah, you got out. It sounds like you were a college athlete. And so you were doing all that, but you found yourself for reasons of family and sickness, but also just missing it. Like maybe it wasn't so bad being back at home, or
that's right. Yeah,
maybe my life, what I thought it was going to be out here was not, maybe that's not what God wants.
Right.
Was that a hard decision to kind of make that transition and go back and finish your degree somewhere else, or were you ready to do it?
I think in hindsight, like looking back on it, I kind of was like, maybe looking at it not as a failure, but kind of coming back, but I knew I was coming back for the right reasons. So I think it all worked out in the end, but in hindsight, in the moment, I was like, I just had this all planned out, kind of like Candace said, like goal oriented, like this is going to go this way, so you go that way, and then kind of like a change of plans happened. And I came back home to finish out the degree and get a job. But yeah, in the moment of I was kind of, I would say, stressed and that kind of played a role too. I would say was growing up, I really didn't think anxiety was a thing, or it's like kind of like from a male perspective, just get over it. And I mean, don't really talk about it. It's probably around like 2011, 2012. So I remember one time I was actually catching a flight back from Oklahoma to North Carolina for Christmas break. And I started sweating. I was like, what is going on? You know what I mean? Because I've never like had like these thoughts before. And like, but now looking back as a future counselor, I was having a panic attack. But
wow, yeah.
At 19 years of age, I was like, what is going on? You know what I mean? So I came back home and like didn't tell my parents anything about it, and just got back on the flight after Christmas break, went back, and was still dealing with like some of it, trying to process, figure out what all like was going on. You know what I mean? Because it's like, but that really kind of played a part. And then kind of like let me like try to figure this out and then get through it. But yeah, so definitely like dealing with some anxiety, and I think that played a part, maybe moving halfway across, the nation and being out there by myself, and just, which a lot of people do, but I think also it's just like, I didn't know the techniques now that I know with counseling, and how to like get through things like that. And then also just kind of talking to somebody about it. I was not like kind of like closed off and not really like, I think it comes from just the male perspective, not opening up and not going to see a therapist or anything like that. So
like you said,
for
I'm
me,
just
it's
going to
kinda
power
getting
through
all
it.
that.
Yeah.
And then kind of played a part too, and also like me coming back home. So there's like a lot of things that are going on, but mainly the family, and then my grandpa being sick. But looking back on it, it all worked out for the best.
So you mentioned, you mentioned three things. So if I'm correct, so you mentioned something with athletics, religious education, and psychology. So you had like three things going on there?
I do, yeah. So I've been the athletic director at Falcon for the past 6 years, and then I taught obviously 3 classes at Falcon. So I was over athletics, coached basketball for the past 6 years, and then but now I also had a BS in Christian counseling the whole time, and just kind of, I would use it here and there, like maybe like a team meeting after a loss or a team meeting after a win or something like that, trying to like, use a little bit of psychology stuff. But yeah, so it's like I kind of had that this whole time, and now I'm like, you know what, like, let me take this a step farther, and really like I love working one-on-one with students and athletes, and that's kind of like what helped me want to get into mental health counseling. So and then also the kind of things I like went through, like dealing with anxiety and a little bit of depression. So
you had that perspective of, you knew how to be helpful, but it was you working with the students and realizing you enjoyed the one-on-one that kind of clued you into, maybe I've been doing this athletic thing and I've been doing this teacher thing. Maybe I should really start looking at this counselor thing. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. So I started off at Falcon. I come home from college and do the summer program for them, and then I go back to college, and then eventually worked out where I got a full-time job at Falcon, and then kind of started out as a teacher and then coach and athletic director. But I just saw like the need for mental health for the students being there at Falcon, and some of the things they were going through, because at the group home, they could be there for a year, 2 weeks. It's all, every child's case is different. So I just saw the need there for mental health and things that they were dealing with. I was like, it just kind of like stopped in my heart. So it's like, like there's a need for that. And for me, it's all about giving back. So I was like, this could be like the perfect opportunity to further my degree and then work with people that are dealing with issues one-on-one. So. Because I wish I had somebody at my age as a teenager, kind of like, hey, like everything's gonna be all right. Like, let's focus on different techniques, coping strategies, and things to eventually get to the point we need to be. So,
yeah, when I look back at my own journey, like I should have gone to counseling. I did not. I didn't even know that my maybe I did. I think I did know because of some of the classes I took that my university had a counseling center. I should have gone.
Yeah, that was me. They're like, they offered counsel. I was like, nah, I'm not going. That's not for me.
Yeah, like it would have been really helpful.
I think COVID really put in hindsight to me like the need for mental health too. Because during COVID, we're in the house, and so that was kind of like pivotal because I had to teach from home on Zoom. Yeah, and it's just like, hey, like this is definitely a need for mental health. And I think COVID actually brought that into perspective too, just kind of like entice me more to go for mental health counseling.
How did you know? So you're working full time there. How did you know it was was there something that told you like the time is now? Like I need to go do this now? And was there something specifically that like pulled you to Liberty?
So I actually was in therapy. I just go I'd probably go once a month just to get, somebody else's perspective.
Yeah.
And she kind of mentioned hey, have you thought of going to further get a master's in clinical mental health counseling? And I was like, you know what, I really have not. She's like, well, you're working with the kids already at the group home and of all ages, and some are level 1 through level 3. So it's just well, have you you're pretty much counseling all day there anyway. So it's just why not go ahead and further your degree? And that was actually my therapist that kind of brought that into light. And I was like, you know what, that's a good idea. And I looked at all the kind of opportunities you can do with mental health counseling. Whether if I want to go into the sports route, or if I want to do this or do that. Yeah. But yeah, really just kind of I would say just being at the group home and seeing the need there kind of motivated me more. And then also, I kind of like Candace. I got a taste of teaching. I was like, "What's that teaching's awesome." Like, but I would say maybe like a burnout period. It's like, what's the next step for me? Because I'm always like, I'm solution focused. I was like, what's the next goal or step I want to achieve in life? And I was like, let me get this master's in mental health counseling. But really, my therapist helped me kind of like see the need and see like really open that career opportunity for me to go. And then I applied to Richmond in Atlanta, Wake Forest, and then Liberty. But I just heard like so many good things about Liberty's online program. And I think also one of the other counselors at the place I was going to went to Liberty and like just spoke positive of it. So it came down to those three. And then in my gut, I was just, Wake Forest had to wait until like another year till I could start. And then Richmond was still backed up, but Liberty I could start like that summer. And you know me, I'm like, let's get it done. So I was like,
you were talking about that pages thing earlier. Yeah.
I knew it was going to be like a financial burden, but I was like, in the grand scheme of things, like this is going to like help me give back more to people. And I was able to start at Liberty that summer. So, and luckily now, 2 years later, I'm getting ready to graduate, which is, I have lots of gray hair and I'm losing hair, but hey, hopefully it'll be worth it. So I question it every day.
It will be. It will be. But so there's a few things that I really love that you pointed out, Cameron, about your story. And one of them is that someone planted a seed. They pointed out things you were good at. They pointed out things that you were already doing, and they planted a seed that just sat there for a little bit and really started to take root. And I love that because when we are in community with other people, whether that's, I mean, for you, it was your counselor because you were pursuing mental wellness, right? You were trying to be the best that you could be, and that was part of your plan to do that. And so in pursuing that and in pursuing wellness and health, like God used that to plant a seed to further your career, inevitably. And even when you were talking about this place of, I looked at this college and this college, and in that one, it was about timing. Like you knew it was time to start, and there was one place where you could go ahead and start immediately. So God was, it was kind of like, well, this door, you're going to have to wait. This door might be shut. Like this door's wide open. Yeah. And so even in those places, God was giving you that pointing in the direction that you should go. And I love that because I think so many times that's what happens. For me, I grew up in church, and there's a lot of things I probably missed, but one thing that I did really understand is God had a purpose for me, and he had a specific plan for me. And so I was one of those, and because I am also very goal-oriented and need a plan, I was praying about it. 15, 16, 17, like this was on my daily prayer list. Lord, what do you want me to do with my life? Lord, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to be? And I had excelled in music. When I was a junior in high school, I took a psychology class and fell in love with it, which is when I was really introduced to psychology and counseling was at 16 years old. And then I also really enjoyed ministry and what that might look like. I was a youth leader and did a lot of stuff like that. And so should I go to seminary? Should I do music? Should I do counseling? Like a lot of these things were on my plate. My dad said, you should go be a lawyer. I mean, there were so many different things because I may or may not could have argued really well. I did. You'd have to ask him about that. But let's just say I'm persuasive. So, I had all of this stuff going on, but I was, and I'm just so thankful. I don't, when I look back or I hear people's stories now, a lot of times they didn't have that awareness or didn't know that they had a purpose, and so they didn't pray into that at that time, which I understand that, but I'm just thankful that I did. And I kept praying and kept praying and kept praying, and my mom was the one, she kind of said to me a little bit about what your counselor said to you. She was like, honey, you already counsel all your friends and you're the one that they call at 2:00 in the morning. You might as well go get paid for it. Yeah. And it wasn't some like spiritual comment that she made, but God really used that in that moment to just something clicked. And I was like, that's it. Like, it was like, that's my answer. This is what I'm supposed to pursue. And so I knew going in to my bachelor's that I was going to be in psychology. I knew I was going to go get my master's and it was going to take another 2 years. But I knew that going in at 18 without a shadow of a doubt that that's where I was going to be. I had no idea where it was going to take me, but I knew that this is what I'm supposed to do. This is it. And so I'm really thankful for those moments. Now, I already told you I tried to go somewhere else for college. But God was like, no, you need to go to Lee University, which I had an amazing experience, by the way. Shout out to Lee and Liberty and UNCW and all the places we're talking about today. It's in Tennessee. So Liberty's in Virginia, if you don't know. But,
That's right.
you know, God had his plan in that too, because I went and visited other places. I wanted it to be somewhere else. And then I remember going to Lee during their like freshman visit day or whatever. And I had such a peace. Like I knew, I was like, man, I've got to stay here.
Yeah.
But the teachers I had and the training that I got was perfect for me. And it was just, 5 stars. So it was exactly where I needed to be. And because for me, it was a Christian university, it really went ahead and blended my beliefs and psychology, which is what I do today in my own private practice. So I see, again, these foundations that were laid to 20 years later being fruitful and growing trees because of that foundation. So God just uses all of this stuff, our relationships, us pursuing wellness, us praying, us maybe getting feedback from other people in our lives, or again, reading scripture. He uses all of these things to weave in our story for what he has, gifted us and talented us to do. So I just think it's it's a really awesome experience to be able to look back, like I said, and see, even Cameron, I'm sure for you, even though you're in school right now, but just even looking back at younger you being in another state and just how God even worked that out where you're back at Falcon,
Right. Yes,
and
ma'am.
being able to play a bigger role in that.
That's right. Yeah.
So if, let's talk for a second, let's get into this idea of calling versus career. And I almost didn't want to talk about this because people use different words, but I think it's really good because if you don't have an experience like me, where God told you and confirmed you at 18 that you're going to be a counselor, then you might be questioning, what is my purpose, or where is my place, or where do I have meaning? And so I really want to talk about this because of that, because a lot of people do not have my story. I believe I'm more unique in the career field of this than not. I think most people, I got into this college and I'm going, and I think I might have an idea. I mean, more students than not come in declaring a general major. They have not declared a major within the first 2 years of being a freshman and sophomore. So a lot of people don't know. They're still in this uncertain place of like, all right, God, like I'm trying to figure it out, or I'm trying to see where you lead me, but I'm just not really sure. So let's talk a little bit about that. And so career really is, it's literally what we do, right? It's what we do. And we have professional growth from that. There's a lot of, our finances a lot of times come from that. Or if we are at home and not traditional working, then we're supporting everything for people who are bringing in the finances, whatever that looks like. But there's some type of financial stability or professional growth that comes into what we do. And the other thing is your career or your job can change multiple times throughout your life. So, I mean, even Cameron was talking a little bit about that, of the different jobs that he's had as educator and as athletic director. And like these things change. My husband has the same story in that, where it's not been one role for him. Like it's been seasonal in kind of where where God has placed him and where God has put him. And it's been very specific reasons in a lot of those things. So even in my career, knowing that I'm a counselor, I've changed jobs a few times. I've been in private practice. I've been in higher ed. I went back to private practice. I've been in foster care and in community services with mental health. Like my role has changed in some way, even though I've been in the same place. So our careers can change multiple times throughout our life. I work from home now, when I used to work at a building every day, an hour away. So, I mean, all of that can change. And our careers a lot of times are based on our skills or what we enjoy or our education, or the market or opportunities. All of those things happen. But when we talk about calling, or we talk about purpose, or we talk about, as Christians, what our calling and purpose should be, really, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's to bring glory to Him. Mm-hmm. And that's really simplistic. And we could go, I mean, there's been books written about it, right? The Purpose-Driven Life. That's an oldie but goodie. I would highly suggest that if somebody wants to dig deeper into how I made and why God made me specifically that way. But there's always been this search for meaning and purpose. And that's true in our culture as well today with every generation. We're still looking for that meaning and that purpose. But ultimately, as Christians, it's to glorify Him and Him alone. And you've got some other scriptures in there, like Micah 6:8. I'll read this one. It says, "The Lord has shown you what is good. He's told you what He requires of you." Okay, you've got my attention. God has just said what's good and what He requires of me. I'm listening. "You must act with justice, love to show mercy, and be humble as you live in the sight of your God." There's a lot of different versions of that. Some of them are act justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. But the idea is all of that in that, it brings God glory, right? When we're acting justly on behalf of others, or we want to make sure that justice is done. When we love to show mercy because we've been shown mercy, we're being Christ to somebody else in our lives. Or maybe we need to show mercy to ourselves too if we're somebody who gives ourselves a hard time. Walking humbly, where we think of other people as higher than us, or at least look at how can I serve? How can I serve the Lord in the places that He's put me? To glorify Him, not for the praise of man or not to feel like satisfied or productive. We talked about identity last week on the podcast. You can go listen to that if you want to, because our work is not who we are. It's just what we do. But our purpose, it should be the overflow of how can we bring glory to God. And it doesn't matter right now whether you know what your career is or not. It doesn't matter right now if you're trying to figure that out. It doesn't matter if you're between jobs. If you are a believer in Christ and you have been saved, then your purpose in where you're at is just to bring glory to God. And you can ask Him what that looks like. Because in every circumstance, it may be different. For the ones that are at home and they're not the ones bringing home the paycheck, it may be very specific things in how your household is utilized. If you have children, it's how you're stewarding your children and discipling your children and bringing glory to Him in that way. If you're in the workplace and you're in a secular workplace, it may be how can I be a light? Maybe it's just to be kind. That doesn't mean you have to, wear a T-shirt that says, "Ask me about my Jesus." If you want to, that's okay. I'm not saying that's bad, but maybe that's not it. Maybe you're really uncomfortable in that way and your gift is not evangelism. You can still show kindness and just be somebody who's kind, or be the one that doesn't gossip, or whatever bringing glory to Him looks like in your place. You can find that and you can do that, and that is your work. For now, exactly where you are. So I want people to hear that if they're feeling lost or uncertain about where that is, just ask God how you can bring Him glory in the moment.
That's good.
And you'll be doing what you're called to do. Other things will come, but in this moment, just say, with what I have, the gifts, the talents, and abilities, the way that God made me. There's a verse in Isaiah, I think it's 43:10. I might be wrong, so don't quote me here. But it literally says that He makes us for His glory. And he fashions us with the gifts, abilities, talents that we have, that we've been given, or the insight or the mind, or just whatever you want to say there, specifically for His glory. And we just need to ask God, how can I do that today? Even if I don't have everything else figured out. So, I think that's a good place to stop and take one more break before we come back and wrap up. So you are listening to The Merge, and we will be right back.
Narrow Gate Counseling, providing professional counseling where you are. At home, at work, or on the go. Our virtual counseling services are convenient, affordable, and accessible on any device. For a free consultation, call 888-9-NARROW. That's 888-962-7769. Connect and learn more now at narrowgatecounseling.com.
Welcome back to The Merge, where faith and mental health meet. I have been having a conversation today with Candace Leon and Cameron Leggett about our careers and calling and faith and mental health and how all of this stuff goes together. And we've really just been sharing our own journeys around careers and jobs and what God has done. So I hope that you have been able to take some nuggets away from that. And I really just want to end this last 10 minutes that we have together on what are just some practical steps and applications. And Candace and Cameron, if you have some, please jump in as well. I'm going to go through here a little list that I wrote, but I'd love to hear maybe one thing that a nugget that you would leave for our listeners around this topic. So I'll come to you guys here in just a minute. But I think one of the, like I said with me, at this moment in my life, I feel like my calling and my career, or however you want to put that, are really aligned because I get to do biblical counseling. So it's this really neat place, but a lot of people don't get that mix. And so, again, practically, what are our applications in where God has us today? And the first thing is to pray about it. Wherever you are, whether your prayer is, how do I bring glory to God in this moment, whether you're trying to decide what college you're going to, or whether you're going to be an older adult learner and you're trying to decide if you're going to go back to college because maybe you feel a nudge to change careers and you're in your 50s or even 60s or 40s and you're like, I'm too old for this, but you're not if God's calling you to do it. So pray about it. In Philippians 4, 6, and 7, it literally says to pray about everything. And this part's included, right? So we can pray about this too. And it says, tell God what you need, thank Him for what He's done, and then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. I know there have been times in my searching that I can get a little anxious in that when I don't feel like I've got the answer. But if we're praying about everything the way that we know that we can, and we're thanking Him for the things that we can in the moment, it says that His peace will be deposited in us even past our understanding. So that's Philippians 4, 6, and 7. So pray about it. The other thing is to seek wise counsel because you don't know who that seed's going to be planted from. Like Cameron said, for him, it was another counselor. I mean, I can even think about, I was talking to a girl who was really considering, we were talking about the counseling field and she was really considering, she's about to graduate with her bachelor's. And she was like, she was going to get her master's and she was about to sign up and look at classes and everything. And we just started talking about kind of the practicality of it. And I just asked her, I was like, is God calling you to do this out of ministry or is this supposed to be like your financial stability? And she really started thinking about it. And she was just like, I don't know. And she has made money in other ways, like graphic design. Like she's really gifted in a lot of other areas, and that's how she'd made money in the past. And she loved doing those things. And so we ended up having this whole conversation. And at the end of it, she was like, "Oh my goodness, I was about to go get my master's in something that God hasn't called me to get my master's in," because in her mind. In her mind, it was just the next practical step, right? Like she was just going to go through it. People in her life had told her she was good at it and encouraged her. And that's not bad. It's not bad to encourage people in your gifts. But when we were really getting down to like the practicality of that being a job for her, she realized that is not what she wanted to do.
Yes.
And so it took that one. I remember the look on her face after we had that conversation. And I said, your whole world just changed, didn't it? And she was like, yeah. It did. And she's like, but it's good. Like she knew that was a conversation. And I hadn't planned to have that conversation with her in the moment she brought it up. So you never know but if you're seeking wise counsel or you're open when you found yourself in these conversations, just listen and see what the Lord may do with that, because that might be the conversation that changes the direction for you. So seek that wise counsel. Proverbs 15:22 says plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. So it's okay to ask other people what they think. I've already said this, but remember your job is not your identity. God values who you are, where you are, not what you can do. So if you don't have a title in this moment, or you don't know what your career or your job is, God values you where you are, and He's got something for you to do right there. So you are not your job. He has created you for a purpose, and He has that. And that is not necessarily connected to a career. It's just who you are and where you are right now. I think another one that I would say, I saw this a lot when I was counseling in the university setting. Don't give in to the wrong pressures. I talk to a lot of students that because of society or even family pressure, well, they've had this business for years and they want to hand it to me. I'm not saying that wouldn't be great and a blessing, but if God's directing you somewhere else, maybe you're supposed to be somewhere else. So I think that's why prayer, it goes back to prayer and wise counsel, so that you just don't give in to the wrong pressures. You don't just do this because other people have told you that you were good at it. You're saying yes, Candace. Tell me a little. There's some thump behind that. Would you add to that?
Yeah,
what would you say?
I'm sitting here thinking about my nugget that I would share, but that is honestly the piece of information, the knowledge that I would like the younger audience, or even those who are considering a different career and they're not, and they're in a different season of their life. I would just say what you said earlier about the practical steps. What might seem to be the next practical step is not always that. Absolutely. But also the pressures that come with, like you said, what other people are, speaking to your life can be uplifting, but it can also make you feel like we talked about, last week with your identity. It could be that place where, someone's like, oh, you should do this or you should do this. And then that kind of like sits on you. So just make sure it's really important that you're seeking what God has for you and what his plan is for you and what his calling is on your life, versus what other people say or speak, to you, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah.
So that's what I was just totally agreeing with.
Yeah. So that pressure can come from anywhere. And again, it's okay to take it in, but we have to take all that to the Lord and say, Lord, was this you? Or is this just somebody's opinion? Because, we all have opinions, or we'll see a gifting in somebody and encourage them in that. It doesn't mean that they're supposed to, major in it. Maybe they are, but you have to take that to the Lord and talk to him about it, right?
And that would be that point, that nugget of just make sure that you're praying and seeking God's will, for those wonderful compliments, because sometimes they can put pressure on us that we don't even realize that it's there. Yeah,
that's great. So we don't want to go for the wrong type of pressure here. We want to take things in, but we don't want it to be, well, everybody in my family's been this, so I have to be this, or whatever that might look like. Or my parents said I need to be a doctor, so I'm going to be one. Again, it depends. And I know there's families and cultures. I'm not speaking against any of that stuff. I'm just saying, as a believer, we just need to talk to God about it. That's all I'm saying. I think another one would also be when we serve, or when you're in, especially if you're in a job like nursing or counseling, or just like even first responder, like a servant type job. Maybe it's not like a business and finance, but just like service type job, or even in ministry, for those who are called to ministry, and that's what they're doing as their job as well. A ministry or like a call-in driven career, you still have to take care of your mental health. Mental health is crucial. So
absolutely, because
if we're supposed to give, and we're supposed to serve and pour out wherever we are, and bring him glory wherever we are, we can't do that from an empty cup. That's spiritually, that's mentally, that's everywhere. So just a practical step is take care of yourself.
That's right. Yeah.
Take care of yourself.
That's the big thing you talk about when like my classes now is just self-care time. What does your self-care time look like? So for me, it's like going to the gym. Obviously, get better in shape by the summer, but for me, it's more like mental health reasons, because I feel better. I feel happier when I leave the gym. So it's kind of like my self-care time. So.
Yeah, we still have to, and I've talked about this on podcasts before, but I remember one time when God really drove this point home for me and was just talking about stewardship. And he was like, LynnDee, for you to be a good steward in your job, you have to take care of yourself so that you can be well enough to do what I've called you to do, or to hear the stories that you have, or to emotionally hold the weight of some of the things that you hear. Like you have to take care of yourself. It's not you keep sacrifice. Like you're not being a good steward of what I've given you if you don't take care of yourself so that you can take care of other people. And I was just like,
Yes.
oh, because I grew up with the whole like sacrifice everything. So, and I can't tell you where I got that, but I looked at resting or taking care of myself as selfish. I don't know where that came from, but that's just kind of where I went, right?
Yes.
And so I'm going to sacrifice my own needs, desires, wants to the detriment of myself. I think in general, it's not a bad thing, but
And that spills over in so many other areas of life, like, being a mother or a father,
Yeah.
a spouse, a friend, you really can't fill or pour into other people's cups without having yours filled. So
yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
And I think what I would end with is this place of it all starts by seeking him first. That's it. Wherever we are, like even prayer, even prayer, talking to God, that's seeking him first. So I think a big scripture that I've always loved, and for it's not going to be new for most of us, but Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, because sometimes God does not do the things that we think that he should or will. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. So if we're trusting in him, if we're open and not just leaning on what we know or what we understand, if we're to the best of our ability and with the help of the Holy Spirit, submitting our ways to him, our career path, our home, our finances, just everything, where should we go to school? If we're submitting all of our ways to him, then he's going to make that path straight. He's going to work that out, and we're going to know. And then there's Matthew 6:33. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added. So seeking him first, bringing him glory, it's all about him. If we're doing that, the rest of this stuff is going to get worked out one day at a time. And so we have to bring it back to that. So Candace already left with her nugget. Cameron, would you throw anything else out there to wrap us up?
I like quotes.
Yeah, go for it. Give us a quote.
Podcast a lot, so it's kind of like I like Ed Mylett, and I listen to Tony Robbins a lot, but just trying to think like how to end this. But like Tony Robbins says, like it's in your moments of decisions. It's in your moments of decisions that your destiny is shaped. So like, I would kind of end with that. Is just like kind of take that step of faith. You know what I mean? Whether it's like applying for that job or finding your calling, and calling comes from like finding your passions, like your natural talents, and then also just like a lot of self-reflection. So I look back at my life, self-reflect, and you know what I mean, and then try to move forward. And then also like you're not too old to like do whatever you want to do. You know what I mean? So I'm going back to school at 31 and finishing now, but it's just like if you feel called or you feel the need to, then take that step of faith and go out and do it. So. Because I know if that counselor with me, like if when I brought that up or she brought it up about me going back to school, she showed empathy, and if she'd been like, no, I don't think it's a good, and I probably would never went for this, you know what I mean? But she's very supportive of it, and that really gave me the motivation to kind of go back. But I would just end with that, just step out in faith is the biggest thing, and then everything else will kind of work out.
Yeah, and I love what you said about those decision points. And again, I think that goes back to don't make those decisions in a vacuum. Like have the wise counsel, pray, do that, because it does matter. Like those decisions, it can set you up for, prosperity and blessing and all of those things, or it could not. It could go the other way. So making those not in a vacuum, but really what the Lord is the right way to do it. So thank you all so much for telling me your stories today and for having this conversation with me. I want to leave you all and our listeners with this blessing from Numbers 6:24-26. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show you his favor and give you peace. You've been listening to The Merge, where faith and mental health meet. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
You've been listening to The Merge, hosted by LynnDee Horn. You can always find a copy and catch up on past episodes. Just subscribe to The Merge anywhere you listen to podcasts.